A very good evening to you and welcome to the show. Sorry about the delay, there was a bit of movements in the day. Today I've got a fascinating guest. Interesting. He's a world champion, he's a training captain, he's an international airshow pilot, a man of many talents, all things aviation. Captain Nigel Hopkins, he's sitting in Frankfurt in Germany right now with the repatriation flights of South African and German citizens. Stay tuned for more. Nigel, good to see you. How are you doing in Germany today?
Hi, Alex. Yeah, we're good. Been here a few days and getting ready to come back home and see what awaits us back at home.
Okay, yeah, you've had a couple of days there. Did you take citizens that way? Did you take cargo up? Which flights were you involved in?
Yeah, we took citizens via Cape Town. So we arrived just Sunday morning. We've got a few days here. And then we're actually off to Luanda tomorrow to go and fetch South African citizens in Luanda to bring them home.
Okay, that's great. I'm glad that they're tying in. We did a recent trip out to the Far East. There was nothing tying coming back yet, but I've heard some flights coming back via Accra, etc., Lagos. So great that they're using that initiative to build it into to the return journey too. But Nigel, I mean, your pedigree speaks for itself, but talk us through just a little bit of a background. I know you were in the Air Force, you were an air traffic controller at some point. So just talk a little bit how you got into flying. You're a son of a pilot as well. And start from a little bit in the beginning, sort of 16, 18 years old. Where did it start for you?
Yeah, well, it actually started at about 16 days, if you want to call it that. So I grew up in an aviation family. I grew up on a parachute club from a very young age and started gliding on my dad's lap before I could even walk. So it's pretty much been in the blood the whole time. But yeah, after I left school, I was a loadmaster at 44 Squadron for a year, which was a lot of fun and sort of got me into pilot training. I started at Defence Flying Club, went solo there, and then managed to get a job at Grand Central working in the control tower, which was a great experience. I learned a lot about aeroplanes and just had an opportunity to really knuckle down and get all my studies out the way, which was great because I hate studying. So it just gave me a chance to finish it all before I got stuck into flying.
Okay, nice. So, I mean, I know you've got quite a wide background. I mean, starting at a young age like that, exposure is good. But it's good to see that someone that's achieved so much like yourself. That it doesn't mean that you just jumped in and was flying the best airplanes. You started off as a loadmaster. You worked on the tower as well. So that's an interesting building block. And then kicked off really with a qualification as a flying instructor. I mean, you've got many years and thousands of hours of instruction. So how did that sort of bedrock of instruction build you into the next phase of flying? You became an airline pilot quite young too.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I think I learned a lot about myself teaching people of all ages. I was very young as an instructor, so I had to really learn the ropes very quickly. But you learn firstly a lot about yourself as a teacher. And secondly, you learn a lot about the mistakes that aviators make, and you make a lot yourself as you go through your career. But I think as an instructor, you pick it up very quickly, and it certainly was a great building block. I had the opportunity to also fly a bit of charter and medical rescue out of Grand Central before I got into the airline. So it was really a chance to get to know aeroplanes really well on your own without much guidance, if you want to call it that, and just learning the ropes in the bush and flying medical rescue. I had some great mentors along the way, one of them being my father as well. So that was fantastic to do that. In fact, we did our comms together, which was quite interesting experience as well. So, yeah. And then from there, I started in the airlines with SA Express. That was a great learning curve. It was the early days of SA Express on the Dash 8. We did a lot of flying and to some interesting places. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh, nice. And I know then at that point as well, when you started in the airlines, you were quite involved in the EAA with the rally and precision flying. And although it's was fairly well known in the aviation game, not a lot of people know about. Talk us a little bit through what is rally flying, what's precision flying, and how did that build you into the sort of well-formed pilot that you became after that?
Well, growing up with the Experimental Aircraft Association, I had the opportunity to navigate for many of the pilots while I was at school still. So that was a great experience, learning the ropes on navigation and map reading and finding places and accuracy of timing. And it was something I really enjoyed. And I always wanted to fly aerobatics, but the cost was quite prohibitive. So I thought that rally flying would be quite interesting and learned a lot about aeroplanes and flying sort of close to the stall limits and a lot about navigation and accuracy. So I did pretty well in that, which was great. I managed to win a few South African championships, both in rally flying, which is 2 crew, and precision flying, which is single crew. And ultimately, together with my navigator Delta Clark, we had a 3rd place in Italy in '99, and we managed to win the World Championships in 2003, which is certainly a highlight.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're talking about did pretty well, world champion is nothing to be sneezed at. That's fantastic. You've got a rich pedigree. I know over that time, particularly was a building. It must have been gaining confidence day by day. 13 titles in a 9-year period in the national level, a world championship. That's wonderful. And if I understand correctly, you're representing your country. You know, that's a Springbok level qualification, wearing the green and gold, going to all these world champs events. It just must have been such a fantastic feeling.
Absolutely. I think there's nothing better or nothing more motivating than representing your country. It is a SASCOC recognised sport. So we got our national colours and our Protea colours, and just representing your country. I think as South Africans we are very patriotic, and seeing the flag behind you and listening to the anthem when they raise the flag and getting your medals, it's really something special.
Yeah, it is. It really is a great event. And I want to just put some pictures up here. So when you went from at this point now, you're growing in stature, in your own ability, you're winning medals, you're now in the airline, you're becoming an instructor at a young age, a pilot instructor at the airline. Then opportunities also came about, and then there's a picture from way back when of the Sasol Tigers here. So talk us through how then you started in this sort of jet formation aerobatic team. Correct me if I'm wrong, is this, besides the military, was this the first private jet aerobatic team in the country?
It was. There were some entrepreneurs, we want to call them, some businessmen and some great aviators, good friends of mine that managed to get a few of these aircraft, ex-Russian military aircraft. And I was afforded the opportunity to join the team, which was a great experience. Having not made it into the Air Force at the time, they'd stopped all pilot training in the Air Force, which obviously was a dream of any young aviator or passionate aviator. So I missed that, and although it actually worked out well for me career-wise, I never had the opportunity to fly fast jets or any kind of jets. So although these are jet trainers and not supersonic aircraft, it certainly was a great opportunity to be able to fly these aircraft. Okay, and again, I'm just leaving that picture up there because it was quite a well-run thing. It was set up nicely, it had great sponsorship. The team, it looked good, it operated well. But again, not all things just you take that step up, and you feel like you're making it. But you also had some setbacks there. So I don't know if you'd like to share a little bit about the L29 incident you had at Newcastle. And people have setbacks, and talk us through what went on in Newcastle for you. Yeah, I think it's I don't necessarily want to talk about these things, but it does happen. I guess every sport has its injuries, and there are risks. And the idea is obviously to mitigate those risks as much as possible. But unfortunately, they do exist. And I unfortunately ended up with an onboard fire and had to force land the aircraft, and did get a bit hurt in the process. But you learn from those incidents, and some guys get away with it. I was very lucky, and by the grace of God, go we. And I had the opportunity to then continue with my career and to achieve more. And you learn from it. What doesn't get you sort of makes you stronger at the end of the day. So one of those setbacks, and I think it just shows that irrespective of who you are and what you may have achieved before, you're only as good as your last performance. Sure. And you need to continue to be disciplined and to work on your skills. And tell me, was there a bit of a setback? Were you out of the cockpit for a while? How did you feel about getting into sort of smaller aircraft again versus career? Because by then you're established in an airline career too. What was the recovery time for you on that? It was pretty quick. I always said, if it was a skill thing, if I'd made a mistake from a skill perspective, it might have affected me a bit more. Like I said, these things happen. That's why they called it an accident at the end of the day. So, it didn't affect me as much as possibly it would have if I'd made a big mistake or something like that in my abilities. Okay, well, we're not going to dwell on that, but it just highlights the point that people get setback, and how you pick yourself up is really what determines how your success and your ongoing life's going to be. So, well done for that, getting back in the cockpit and carrying on. And around that point, I presume that was the time where you really started knuckling down with the air show, the aerobatic flying and competition aerobatics. And now you've done all the rally flying, and now honing your skill on competition aerobatics. So talk us through what competition aerobatics looks like, and how you prepare and how you go about executing, being ready for competition on the advanced or unlimited level. I've always wanted to always wanted to compete in aerobatics, and I'd watched a lot of our guys going through the aerobatic scene and achieving well, and just really enjoying it. And there were a lot of guys on the scene at the time, Peter Saliers and Stu Davidson, that were really doing well and flying internationally. And obviously, growing up in air shows, a lot of those guys were also competing. And then in 2004, we know Glenn Dell won the Advanced World Aerobatic Championships in Sweden, and that was right about the time where I had the opportunity to get into an aerobatic aircraft, and the sport was growing pretty quickly based on his achievements and results. And that's when I started, and I started right at the bottom at sportsman level, and started building up the skills and the necessary experience to get through the ranks, through intermediate, advanced. And at the time, it was pretty much South Africa was only flying advanced. The aircraft at the time just couldn't get through the unlimited sequences on the high veld, and that's where most of us live and train. And unless we were at sea level, it just wasn't possible to fly the unlimited sequences. I managed, together with Larry Beamish, to get an aircraft. We got an extra 300. In fact, we got two. Started an aerobatic team as well. But the focus then already was on competition aerobatics, and I made the team for the 2006 World Advanced Aerobatic Champs as pretty much a rookie in advanced. It was early days, and just went for the experience. It was a great experience. And then 2008, we went off to America for the advanced, and we had a good team. We had 8 pilots, and as a team, although it wasn't a full aerobatic champs, there were some countries that didn't participate. We managed to get a silver medal as a team, and I got an 8th position overall. So that was really the start of my international aerobatic career in terms of doing well and just really enjoying the sport. Then we managed to get some finance. I got some sponsorship for finance and a couple of sponsors, and the first MX2 came into the country with Mark Hensman and a couple of partners, and this aircraft was just something off the scale, something really capable and something we could fly unlimited with on the high veld. So I managed to, as I said, to get some sponsors and to get finance for an aircraft, and ordered an MX2, which we then sent to Poland in 2010 for the Advanced World Aerobatic Champs. And as a team, we had a great team of 8 pilots, good friends, just a really tight group of people, and I managed to win the first 2 programs and finish 2nd overall. And as a team, we had 4 pilots in the top 12. It was the biggest advanced championship ever. There were 85 entries from around the world. And as a team, we also came 2nd. So it was a great achievement for us. And it sort of got me to a point where, I needed and wanted to step up to unlimited level. And I had the aeroplane. And that's when we started with unlimited flying.
Okay, it sounds like again, if you look back, you think, wow, we've come so far, and you've built up, and someone taking a view, a snapshot of your career, they'll say, wow, he just put one thing in front of the other, and then he was there, and then he was there. But actually, it's a long, slow building process, and this is one of the things of high performance teams. You have to build on these incremental gains. You see the opportunity, you take the opportunity, and you build on it. How can we do something just a bit better tomorrow? That don't worry about what other people are doing, but how can my performance today just be that bit better tomorrow? And so talk us through the difference between, we get to some nice video clips and things in a minute, but some great photos of your flying, but what is the difference between the advanced and the unlimited? Is it such a big change? What are there significant rules, or how do you approach that?
It's a massive change. If you go from advanced to unlimited, it's almost like going right from the basic sportsman class to advanced. That's the kind of jump that it is. So it's a huge jump. The sequences are extremely difficult and complex, and it took us a long time to get ourselves proficient enough to go to a world championships in the unlimited class. It really was a big step. And as you say, you don't see the amount of time and effort that goes in. You can spend weeks on one maneuver trying to get it right, and it was just a big jump. And we have a team of pilots. We don't have coaches here, and we help each other, and we spend a lot of time working together to get ourselves up to the level that we could compete.
It must have been a great feeling knowing that you're all in it for the same thing. You're competing, and you mentioned there was a time there was up to 8 of you there, and you're chipping in. And as we spoke earlier, somebody will be watching your show and giving you that debrief, and maybe you getting some insight. And so, talk us through in the debriefs. How do you go upon building on these incremental gains? I mean, what does your team look like representing the country? You're all there doing individually, but you're also there as a sport. How do you manage that team dynamic on these sort of extreme events?
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting, particularly when we fly national championships. We spend a week coaching each other, hitting each other, helping each other, and then at the end of the day, we fly competition against each other. So it just shows that we are actually a band of brothers, and we're there to improve this. We're there for the sport at the end of the day. We're there to improve each other's skill, to help. I mean, every little bit of criticism or help you can get from the guys on the ground is worth. It's worth so much. You may not see the errors while you're in the cockpit, and that's what we do. We're helping each other all the time, and it just creates a fantastic bond and a team spirit within the team.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, I want to just put a couple of pictures up now, because here's of late, your last while, you've had a Porsche sponsorship. So there's a nice shot of the underside of the airplane, 10 Mountain in the background. I want to credit to Justin Reuck. He's taking great photos. I think he's the foremost aviation photographer at the moment. And a nice picture there of your aircraft with the Porsche sponsorship. So you worked hard to get your sponsorships and get to where you are. Tell us about that side of things. I mean, do you have a team of people? Do you have a PA and an admin and a finance person, and you got your technician and your trainer and your sport? How big is your team to be able to deliver what you deliver?
Well, yeah, you're right. I've got all of those, and you're looking at it. It's unfortunately that there's not enough money to have all of those people around and to pay them. So you end up doing that almost as a full-time job and managing all of that. But I've been very fortunate with my sponsors and having great sponsors like Porsche, and it's been so easy. They really have made it easy for me to operate and just to focus on my flying. So that's been the pleasure of working with these professionals and having these sponsors.
Okay, great. So now let's move on to some more exciting stuff. So I'm going to put a video clip up here that you shared with me earlier. All the stuff available on your Facebook page, etc. And this is the intro to one of the aerobatics, and I'm calling this Smoke on Go.
Smoke on go. And one loop. Let's go.
Okay, so I'm not sure. We had some audio technicalities earlier. Did you hear the audio playing there now, Nigel?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure when you hear those things, you go back into that moment and you're reminded of it. And it's the essential part for me when you hear those words, smoke on go. It's game time. This is it. So talk me through your feeling when you, as the leader of this team, you've now moved into formation aerobatics, and it's now you're the leader of this now team. Smoke on go is where it all begins. Talk us through how that plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've seen the result of many hours of training and getting to a point where you're able to do that. You can see how close we're flying together, and I mean, you've done it yourself. You know how much time and effort goes in behind the scenes to be able to get there. And that's exactly it. It's the moment, it's game time, and that's when it all happens. And you're in the moment for that 10 or 12 minutes that you're displaying, and it's just an incredible feeling, absolutely incredible feeling.
I'm sure even sitting there, I sit here and I hear those words smoke on go, and I start reliving, and I can feel my excitement, my energy levels are going up, my heart rate is already racing, and I'm just thinking back of something from many years ago. So smoke on go. Okay, so talk us through then. So now, this is around 2010, 2011 now, Team Xtreme, or certainly you start the beginning of what Team Xtreme ends up being. Now you've got a formation aerobatic team in aerobatic airplanes, which is, that's a whole different thing. L-29 flying a little bit of an underpowered jet in the formation aerobatics is tricky, but now a twitchy little thing that just wants to keep rolling and snapping. What is that like in formation aerobatics?
Yeah, it's quite difficult. I mean, you're fairly limited in what you can do in formation. So you're not going to end up doing the high energy maneuvers that you would do flying solo aerobatics when you're together like that. But obviously, we can now use the aircraft to split up and really energize the show, which is what it's about. But the actual formation stuff, as I said, you're quite limited, pretty much up to 5G and sort of gentle rolling and looping. But we try and make the display as dynamic as possible. It's very different to solo aerobatics. The camaraderie is there. the trust required to fly together. You have to build, and you've got 4 people to think of, not just yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah, sure. So tell me now, you talked about trust, you talk about building a team, you're the leader of this team now, a lot of responsibility. Do you train that passion, that trust, that team buying into the team, or is that something that you figure out at the sort of selection phase, as it were? And it's not quite the same as the military teams. You kind of handpick your people anyway, but there's certainly a level of sussing out the people that you're prepared to fly with 2 meters on your wing. Is that something you can build up, or do you have to choose the right person from the beginning?
I think it's a bit of both. With civilian teams, particularly like this, there's not a lot of funding. So you've got to get it right from the outset. You don't have the opportunity to really build it over a long period of time. With us, we all grew up in competition aerobatics together, and that's where the respect is built up. The understanding of each other's skill is critical, and from that you then build the team dynamic. So it's not like you just arrive in as a rookie and you've got no idea what the other person's about. You've watched them through their competition. You've watched them get more experience and build the skill levels, and then it's a matter of putting them all together. And obviously the personalities has to be there through friendships before you even start, if this is going to be a success. So fortunately, we are 4 good mates. We respect each other's abilities and talents, and from there we could then practice and put the team together.
Oh, that's great. Now, I'm not trying to make this a show about setbacks, but certainly no one gets to the top of their game without the setbacks along the way. And so I'm just going to put up the other picture here of that unfortunate time where you went off to France. You're in the preparation for the Worlds once again, and here you are in a parachute, and your stricken airplane is 100 meters away. What was the timing? You had moments to make a decision. Talk us through that sort of 5 seconds.
Well, I think you can see from the photograph that the timing was just pretty short. There's a parachute right next to a stricken aeroplane. So, yeah, once again, one of those things, something you never ever want to happen, or expect to happen, even in an aerobatic aircraft that's built to the quality and the strength that it is. One of those things that happened, there was a technical fault, and I ended up not having control of the aircraft, so loss of control. There's a lot in terms of what we do in training in the airline that can be used for other flying situations or scenarios. And a lot of the training we did in terms of risk mitigation and preparation and getting yourself ready for a possible scenario like that, in the airline, I have taken to my private flying as well. And it was one of those situations where, it happened, and fortunately I was able to make a decision immediately and was able to escape.
Yeah, well, certainly it doesn't happen very often, and either you're really lucky or really unlucky. But either way, we're so glad that you're still part of us here, and you are. We're going to come back to this airline talk in a minute, because there's a bit we can zoom in. I just want to talk a little bit more about some of your air shows, and we'll come back to UPRT training and the sort of high level of training that goes on at modern flight decks and airlines. But so then your formation team, now you're flying in South Africa, but you also have another team, or part of the same team, but you're part of an aerobatic team that gives displays 3-4 times a year to China. Again, it's the same core group of people, but these are different experiences. Now, the air space is different, the visibility is poor, the congestion, the language barrier, etc. You're away from home, far away from home for a long time. So talk us through what it is to go to the Far East and give air shows in this formation aerobatics.
Yeah, well, essentially the discipline's the same. Fortunately, we're flying with the same people, so all the team dynamics don't change. But we are flying aircraft we're not familiar with, so it takes a few days to adapt again. As you say, the weather there is very unpredictable. Often flying with poor visibility and low cloud, so you need to be able to adapt your sequences and go from there. We've got a great team set up there. Mark Hensman started a business there with the team and has a fantastic setup in terms of engineering and having the aircraft, prepared and ready, and that makes a huge difference, taking that pressure and that load off as well. So once we're there, essentially we're the same team, and we have the same disciplines and preparation before each show.
Okay, now I've got a picture up there of underneath it says "Flying Home." Was there some particular message in that? The Flying Home ship?
Yeah, I'm not too sure which one that is. We've done so many shows there, and we often get a lot of sponsorships. Often with Chinese writing. So generally, I don't even know what it means half the time. But,
I see.
it's
Okay.
interesting.
Let's put another little video up, and this is the pyro show in China, and then I'll let it play, and you can talk us through this pyro show. Okay, so is it a limited? Obviously, the timing is now limited because it's going to run out. But I see it looks like quite a sort of a low looping show, flattish show. Was there something different to how you operated with now that you got pyros on the aircraft?
Yeah, well, that day, unfortunately, the weather was poor, so we had low cloud and quite limited in what we could do at the time. But the idea is to have pretty much our usual show without the wow stuff, the posing stuff, but more the loops and the rolls and stuff, just to show off the pyro, and it's pretty awesome.
Okay, well, now let's go back to the talk about training. So now you've done all these things, and I know you continue to compete in aerobatics. You continue to have your show in South Africa. You've had international shows all over Africa. You've been to America. You've displayed in more countries than most people have even visited or thought about visiting. Now, back to the airline. So you were an instructor in the airline fairly young, and within a year of becoming a captain, you're a training captain at a significant airline around the world. And now an opportunity presents itself, you stick your hand up and you go for it. Head of training on the Airbus 320 fleet, or at the time 319 fleet. The fleet was a little bit smaller. It became almost twice the size. Your instructor corps had to grow to twice the size. Tell me how you approach that now, because you are responsible for the standards of not only your instructors, but what they give out to the airline, essentially. And that's the whole domestic fleet, half of South African Airways. And now you grow this team from a smaller group to double the size, 20-odd instructors. Tell me how you approach that and your thought processes in building the best team you could have of instructors in the 320 fleet.
Yeah, well, so that was probably something I'd never ever thought of doing. I never saw myself as a management pilot or, running a team like that. It just sort of happened at the time. There was an opportunity. I think for me, I was very fortunate, and being in a position in a professional airline environment like this makes it a lot easier. You're not dealing with rookie pilots. You don't have a massive gradient in terms of experience. So everybody around you is very professional, highly skilled, highly trained, and highly motivated. And the idea was, or the secret there, I think, really is harnessing all the experience that you have around you and trying to get the best out of everybody that is working with you. And the way I approached it was to create a team rather than have a head of training and having a bunch of instructors. Was let's work together as a team. Let's find the strengths in every single individual and use those strengths to our abilities or to the maximum, and then we could all learn from those strengths. So if somebody was very technically orientated, or somebody's very theory orientated, or somebody's very practically orientated, is to use those skills and to maybe upskill some of the areas that we might be deficient in, and just build the team up and build the team dynamics from there.
So if I understand what you're describing there, you almost like you want to hand out the specific areas to people to run as little mini projects. I know you have twice a year, you've got to get together and create the primary training and the secondary training for the year, operational proficiency checks, etc. Almost hand over the areas of people's experience and interests such that they can provide the best product and that the team is delivering a great job.
Absolutely. It's no way that an individual can manage that on their own. And from the outset, I said we are a team, and the big thing also is to give or to have trust in your individual team members, and to give them the ability to make their own decisions, and that's important. To make everybody feel like they are making a difference, and that to me was something that I really focused on. It's just saying, look, I trust you. You have the ability, you have the skill, make it work at the end of the day.
Sure. Okay. And now you've spent about 6 years running that fleet, and then an opportunity presents itself once again, and you go for it. And now you're flying on the international fleet. no longer in the head of the training, but now the role's a bit different. Still in charge and still responsible for the team. An example is today, you're in the other side of the world. You are responsible for, I think your crew's about, 16 odd people there, maybe 18. You know, they've all got their own stresses at home. We're in a very strange place, COVID, the airline, rocky place itself. And you've got to manage the people, manage the team. You're far away from home. You've got external factors. How have you translated your precision flying? You know, you've come through precision flying, rally flying, harnessing your own skills. You build that into flying in a formation aerobatic team, building your own, leading your aerobatic team, leading a team of highly qualified instructors. And now you're in this role where you're looking after a lot of people far away from home with very strange set of circumstances. How does that play out today for you?
Yeah, as you say, I think at the moment everybody's pretty stressed. So I think communication is key. You know, we got together at the beginning of the flight and we had a good chat about what is required. Fortunately, once again, we have rules and protocols and SOPs to follow. And once again, it's having the trust that everybody knows what they need to do and giving them the opportunity to be able to use their skills and present their skills and work together as a team at the end of the day, not trying to be individuals.
Okay, well, you know, we haven't had a chance to fly yet. I certainly hope we do get that chance one day with our careers. So we'll cross over again and another chance to fly together. I want to just jump through one more air show video here and you can talk us through the Faku air show.
Prepare as much as we can so we understand exactly what we're going to do on the day and each individual knows what their roles and responsibilities are. That's just a nice figure. I think most teams in the world do it these days, and you know, one aircraft upside down and one right below it and then somebody rolling around the smoke. It's a nice presentation that looks good, and it's one of our figures that we do as part of the show.
I know, and also coming back to these air shows, it's a privilege to be able to display your art form, your creativity, the energy. The crowds generally love it. I know you guys are looking forward to a great air show down in Stellenbosch, which is always a crowd favorite, and you shared a nice picture. I'll stick it up there with your Porsche Macan and Table Mountain at sunset. You were looking forward to that Stellenbosch air show. It didn't work out, but hopefully that'll come back on. So when you do the performance for the home crowd versus these big international air shows in China, you know, which do you prefer?
I actually prefer the small town shows. I mean, for me, it's more about just enjoying the flying, the passion for flying, the camaraderie with your team. You know, for me, that's more important at the end of the day. Look, when we are at shows, the whole idea there is to get people to enjoy aviation, to stimulate aviation, to stimulate the passion for flying. That's what it's actually all about at the end of the day. But personally, I enjoy the smaller shows and just having fun with aeroplanes.
Well, Nigel, I know it's been great. I know you're sitting there in Germany. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been great talking to you. We can talk a lot about all sorts of other different things. I appreciate your time, what you do for the sport, for the industry, for the airline, your capacity of training and giving back. It's wonderful. So guys, be safe that side. Have a safe trip home. I've got all the links to your Nigel Hopkins, Aerobatics, Team Xtreme, etc. Thanks for what you do, and thanks for your time today, Nigel.
Thanks, and I guess I'll see you in isolation shortly.
Come join us here at Benoni Lakes, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, folks, thanks so much for signing in again today. I appreciate it. Please share, please support the show, subscribe, give us a thumbs up and a like. Tomorrow we've got another interesting guest lined up, Kobus Turin, fascinating individual. Tune in more, Air Force pilot, airline pilot, accident investigator, all-round great guy. That's tomorrow, back again at 14 at 1400. Thanks for signing in, and stay safe.